Every month or so, I like to explore a brand never shared before on the channel, for obvious reasons. As a watch enthusiast myself, I get to learn, experience, and share new things with you guys. And this is one of the biggest benefits of doing YouTube part-time. There's no pressure to chase views and just talk about Rolex, for example, all the time. I'm free to focus on the watches that interest me and always try my best to give a respectfully objective and honest, true review. But today it's finally the turn of Alpina, who happens to be not only a watch brand that first invented the modern sports watch as we know it, but maybe the most underrated Swiss watch brand of all time. So let's explore exactly how and why with a review of the Alpiner Extreme.
Okay, time to get extreme.
Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. A quick wristwatch check before we get into it. Old favorite, the Explorer, is back, and I have it on the wrist candy Valour strap. Of course, the strap I designed myself, and naturally to match my jacket today. Might as well get it over and done with now. Don't forget to like this video. Best way to support the channel, especially if you want to see more free and independent reviews like this. So let's get on with it, shall we? In order to understand just how special and important Alpina are compared to all other Swiss brands, we have to contextualize why it was created in the first place. Founded all the way back in 1883 by Gottlieb Hauser, Gottlieb's vision was to revolutionize watchmaking by forming the Union of Horology. This collective enabled skilled watchmakers to come together to manufacture to the highest standards possible by merging R&D, distribution, production, and thus all their cumulative knowledge and experience in a more cost-effective but ultimately more efficient cooperative business. This resulted in him teaming up with an impressive list of now legendary watchmakers that reads like a who's who of the Genevan watch world. In this lineup was the founders of Certina, Cima, ETA, Minerva, and Glashütte Original, just to name a few. This collaboration proved highly effective, and just like all of these distinguished watchmakers, Gottlieb eventually would strike out on his own, and in 1909, Alpina became its own entirely self-reliant independent brand. In 1938, Alpina introduced the Alpina 4, named in order to reflect the combination of four important characteristics, kind of like the Seiko 5 and its defining principles that gave it its name, but that came much later in 1963. In doing so, this set a tradition of producing rugged sports watches capable of dealing with the harshest conditions of mountaineering, and hence the mountain Alpine-inspired brand logo. These traits were anti-magnetism, water resistance, Inca block shock protection, and a rugged case in stainless steel. In addition, the Alpina 4 was equipped with a manual wind 592 movement, one of the most reliable movements available in that era. The Alpina 4 is an extremely important watch, not only for the brand, but horology in general, because with Alpina designing a watch specifically purpose-built for mountaineering, they had inadvertently invented the world's first sports watch, which of course is a genre and style of watch that we very much take for granted today. Its performance does not betray its masculine, bold appearance. This thing is an absolute tank. The wonderfully oversized screw-down crown gives it a depth rating of a diver at 200 meters and also makes it ergonomically very functional. The plastic resin inlay is extremely efficient and reassuringly easy to use. Speaking of divers, the dial layout is that of a diver as well, with a double marker at 12 for excellent low-light orientation via superluminova, and this also extends to the Lance-style handset as well. The three-part case is stainless steel with scratch-resistant convex sapphire crystal on the front and also for the display back. The rubber strap tapers masterfully down to this matching double push button deployment there. That really complements the main style of the watch. We get the same kind of angles and brushed finish. But most important and impressive of all is the construction of it. It's just impeccably done. Very securely fastened and yeah, you get a feeling of, well, it's not going anywhere, certainly. Speaking of fit, it's remarkably slender, especially considering it has a display back and such a high water resistance, giving the total height just a smidgen over 11 millimeters. We're almost going towards dress watch territory here. We will talk about the diameter and the lug-to-lug a little bit later, but it is incredibly comfortable considering it's quite a large watch. Inside is the automatic AL525 caliber, which unsurprisingly is a modified Sellita SW200-1 with a custom blackened steel rotor that resembles an industrial eye-grab hook. I'm not exactly sure if the intention is to boost efficiency when winding or merely for aesthetics and implying some kind of aerodynamic motion. As expected, we get all the inherent benefits of it being rock solid in reliability thanks to the ETA 2824 that the Sellita itself is a clone of. Many neglect to mention that this particular ETA has now almost half a century of a proven track record, being first introduced in 1971. So expect hacking, quickset, manual wind, and that higher 28,800 beat rate, but my favorite trait is the affordability and ease when servicing. So in terms of accuracy, well, it's running, give or take a few seconds a day, within COSC tolerances, which is very impressive. Now, I would love to see on the website a mention, is this regulated? What are the accuracy out of the factory? Some brands do this, Seiko is pretty good at this, Rolex obviously do it because it's COSC certified, but I would really like to see that kind of information on the website. But I can't complain, but then again, did I get lucky here with this sample that Alpina kindly lent into the channel, or is this across the board? The design language of this watch is very much rooted in the post-Gentry ideal of what a tough and modern Swiss steel sports watch should be. Once again, we see his indelible influence, but unlike their more heritage-based collections, that obviously takes inspiration from watches of their illustrious past, its look has actually got to do with those who took over the brand following their relaunch in 2003, as it was acquired by the founders of Frédéric Constant of Geneva. We are, of course, talking about the couple Aletta and Peter Stas, who we have discussed before, who have since been acquired by this citizen group, which obviously includes Alpina now. They wanted to rebuild the brand by injecting their signature style of clean, function-driven and bold sporty modernity. The result is an aggressive-looking mix of a Panerai Luminor angular cushion-shaped case that surrounds the royal oakish porthole flat-brushed bezel, complete with Hublot-esque screws. The crown guards give a slight Oris Aquis vibe and are balanced out on the opposite flanking side with a Nautilus-style wing. Speaking of the Nautilus, the case construction is rather interesting too, with the entire caseback being actually screwed in with slotted head screws. In a clear spin of the Royal Oak's tapisserie dial, we get a waffle pattern, but this time consisting of the brand's triangular mountain logo. This is echoed in the seconds counterbalance and even the screw heads on the front, which brings me on to another observation. There are plenty of little subtle refinements that are not immediately noticeable, like the faceted hands, all the markers being hand applied, including the brand logo. There's a dash of cherry red on the counterbalance, and this is all executed with a supreme, immaculate quality that gives weight and justification to the words Swiss made on the sloping hash-marked Rehort. As far as I know, there are 3 colours available currently. This is the restrained navy blue dial variation, matched with a lighter royal blue for the rubber strap. So let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? The biggest negative is, of course, that integrated strap. The benefit is you get a sleeker, more modern, Gentry-esque, quite elegant design in general. The downside is, of course, you are dependent on Alpina for alternatives. And in fact, I don't even think they do any aftermarket options. This integration also makes the strap jut out and wear far larger than the 41mm diameter, despite the relatively modest lug-to-lug distance. It's an odd paradox, as it is very comfortable on my small 6.5-inch wrist, but I do feel it should have been maybe 38mm in diameter or even 37. You see, what made the Royal Oak just so compelling was its balanced proportions. That while it was certainly sporty in appearance, it could also be worn in more formal situations, ultimately making it extremely versatile. The Alpina is definitely elegant enough to handle such versatility, but its oversized scale kind of undermines it. Speaking of Gentry, one negative you could accuse it of is being a tad predictable, maybe too safe in terms of its design. But if you look at it from the watchmaker's perspective, however, and you have invested millions and millions into creating a watch like this, making it too divisive and you risk the whole future of the company. Then again, make it too similar to watches that are extremely successful, and the armchair watchmakers in the comments will simply write it off as a Gentry ripoff. It's a very difficult thing to balance, and few take this into consideration. But I guess this is part of the process of designing and making watches that few get to actually experience for themselves. One thing is certain, however, the 38-hour power reserve being a slightly dated amount these days. I would love to see the inclusion of their in-house technology, even if it would push up the price dramatically. But this being a contemporary incarnation of the brand's most defining watch, essentially the spirit and identity of the brand, why not go all the way? They certainly have the capability. From 2008 onwards began a series of proprietary manufactured movements, like the AL950 with automatic winding. Subsequently, they even did tourbillons, world timers, and one of the industry's most robust flyback chronographs ever made. However, compared to the major issues facing owners of the new Powermatic 80s and the Tissot, and also in the Satinas, the H10 in the Hamilton, and the recently reviewed, check it out if you missed it. For those issues, for those negatives, I would actually pick this Sellita over them any day of the week. When reviewing any watch, almost always on top of the list of aspects to consider when it comes to analysis, right up there with the specs, performance, value, and so on, is quality. This is perhaps this brand's biggest advantage, comparable to those costing twice or even 3 times as much. I equate the final execution of this product up there with the likes of Omega, Longines, Oris, etc. This extremely high level of finishing on the dial also extends to the outside, the high polished beveling and contrasting brushing masterfully done. The watch not only looks great, it feels very well made and extremely solid indeed. Again, justifying its name, but ultimately giving the wearer a sense of dependability. If I was going mountaineering and I had to choose between this and, let's say, a Nautilus, well, I'd certainly choose this. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately today, when you think sports watches, well, here's a good example, you automatically think of Rolex and Royal Oaks and all the rest of it. You don't think of Alpina, and I really think they have an underrated heritage, especially some of their historic achievements. I mean, I didn't even discuss their military watches or their compressors, their 60s watches. They have some gorgeous stuff. Definitely cool to have them on the radar and finally on the channel as well. In terms of value, many who have never set foot in a watch factory and not aware of the immense costs involved will undoubtedly complain at its $1,600 retail price tag. I actually think it's quite reasonable, especially considering rival brands at this level have all upscaled their prices in recent years. If you want a quality-made, tastefully designed, Swiss-made sports watch from the brand that invented it in the first place, this is unequivocally one of the best options out there. While it's far from perfect, I mean, no watch is, it's a great Royal Oak or Panerai Luminor submersible alternative that isn't just a blatant rip-off of either, from a quality Swiss brand with some real horological heritage to the name. For me personally, it's got me actually really intrigued about the brand as a whole, and I look forward to exploring more of their watches in the future, especially their pilot and dive watches. So definitely nominate your choices for review in the comments of this video. So there we have it, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think they got right with this watch? What do you think they got wrong? What would you like to see from the Alpina brand in the future? Or perhaps you own one. Please do share your experiences. I'd love hearing that as well. I will catch you in the next one. Please don't forget to like this video. Very important indeed. And thank you for watching. Onwards and upwards. Ciao.